one last shot at happiness. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I think this just might be The Cure's best record, and that's entirely my personal opinion. Feel free to disagree. I think music is a subjective experience. Obviously, there's different things about The Cure that you might like more so, but I think my reason behind that is because this record is coming from a perspective that the band has really never had the chance to write from before. I think now more than ever, with Robert Smith in his 60s, the type of dread and the type of hopelessness and the type of melancholy that he could write from now as opposed to in his 20s and 30s is a lot heavier. I know that I'm only 33, and ever since the release of Alone, I've been feeling the weight of my own history and fearful of what comes next because of said history. Both anxiety of the future and, fixating on the past, essentially, has successfully taken me out of a lot of key moments throughout this year for me. And obviously that's my own personal journey. So I think that my review and my take on this record is entirely based on my own subjective experience. But let's just talk about it for a minute. I think that when it comes to trauma and pain and relationships falling apart, or life feeling miserable, or any of these things, I think that a lot of these themes are kind of commercialized and taken for granted, and whether it be because of trends or because it's all been done before, and obviously like it's taken for granted in The Cure to where it's expected now. But like, I think with a powerful first single like Alone, for example, and then listening to the record, the 1-2 punch going into the second track is just like this coming to terms with like how we grow old and we can't stop that, and accepting that, what it all means. And I think that in reference to hopes and dreams being gone, I don't think it's necessarily that life is hopeless and meaningless now, but I think it's that over time, as we get older, a lot of the hopes and dreams we had in youth tend to either change or fade away. And I think reflecting on that idea is kind of sad, because the death of a dream is a very intense feeling, especially if you could reconnect with your younger self. Like, what were your hopes and dreams? Like, who did you want to be when you grew up? Like, what did you want to accomplish by a certain age? And realizing the cold hard truth that didn't exactly pan out the way that you wanted. I think it's through acceptance and fully mourning these things that we can truly come to appreciate what we have accomplished in life and who we have become, and the perspectives we hold now because of everything that we've been through, as opposed to the dreamy life that we hoped to have. But in order to get there, we have to actually mourn the death of those dreams and those hopes. And I think that that's one of the hardest things to do, because for us dreamers, we don't want to let go of the dream. For a lot of us, the dream is what keeps us alive, essentially. I think that if your reason for continuing life is to try to accomplish something, or to create something or make your voice be heard or to express yourself, then I don't think that's anything you should ever let go of. But I think what really makes this record so much more special than any other Cure record is that for the first time ever, it's really putting that dread into perspective. It's really putting a spotlight on, over time, no matter what we do, everything fades. And I think that when we're younger, it's more romanticized, it's more poetic. Like, especially when we're really young, we're always looking forward to getting older. We're always looking forward to growing up, and going out and being on our own and all this stuff. But like, as we get older and the more that we go through, the more people we lose. Like one of the songs on this record is about Robert Smith's brother dying. And I personally lost my mother. And I think that as painful as the loss is, it's what comes after that's exceedingly difficult, I think. Because, okay, this tragic thing happened. Maybe you mourned, maybe you expressed yourself, maybe you used the pain of loss as fuel to break your limitations in a way, creatively or whatnot. But when that like really intense drive, starts to settle a bit, when the dust settles from that tragic event, now what? I think that a lot of the other songs on the record, like A Fragile Thing, War Song, I think that even though these songs are more traditionally about relationships falling apart or accepting that relationships are not in a good place anymore and that the end is inevitable, I think once again pulling that perspective of being older brings a stronger, heavier sense of doom to these topics. Because when we're younger, it does feel like the end of everything when a relationship's coming undone, or if we're losing someone. But it's still in a weird romanticized place. Whereas like when you're older, it might be easier to recognize the telltale signs and when to walk away. But as opposed to when we're younger, we want to stay with someone because we think we could fix them, or we think that they're really the one, or maybe it's our fault. And when we get older, the reason starts to switch to either we need to stay together for the kids, or we need to stay together for financial reasons, or even scarier, we need to stay together because what if I can't find someone else? I'm getting old. I'm getting too old to the point where, I'm becoming less attractive. I'm becoming less desirable, and, even though I do believe that personality shines through looks, I think that we are still attracted to what we're attracted to. And I think that a lot of people can be attracted to personality over looks, but I think you eventually hit a certain age where like that no longer applies. Does personality over looks apply in your 70s, in your 80s? I think that, that might be subjective, but I think there might be an age bias for most of us. So I think that beyond the music, beyond the Blood Flowers, Disintegration, a lot of these other really great records that were put out by the band that you can hear on this record, I think beyond those sonic blends, it's really the lyrics and the way that they're delivered that I think really ties this whole record together thematically as The Cure's, in my opinion, best record from front to back. End song is like a tragic send-off, basically coming to terms with the theme that's begun in Alone. And I think to myself too, you know, as someone who likes to always be busy and always be working and always be writing, I dread what will happen if I just stop. So I felt really compelled after listening to this record. It just came out yesterday. And I never really review records, but I felt so compelled by the themes of this record. And might sound a little shaky because I was listening to this record before recording this, and there's just a lot of moments on this record that just really choke me up, that I can relate to. And even though I am literally half this man's age, I feel the weight of my history, and I fear what comes next, because we all fear that our best days are behind us. And I think a lot of us don't want to go on living for, you know, our realities to become, you know, the guy that's just like, oh, you know, I'm even starting to catch myself doing this now. Like, oh, you know, I've been on tour, I was on a record label, or I did this, you know, I remember doing that, you know, like that has been energy. You know, even though I was never really anybody, you know, a lot of us are always just constantly striving to become something. And it's all rooted in feeling like we're never really enough. And I'm feeling a lot of that in this record. Whether it's, you know, songs like A Fragile Thing about a relationship, or songs like Alone that are more so about like introspective, like how we fit into our lives as we get older, how we accept that things are falling away from us. I think that when we're younger, that we can romanticize death. And I think even in the spiritual community, like I'm a part of, we can accept death and come to terms with death and see that it's not actually an end, but just a new beginning to something else, the next chapter. But that's not a constant perspective that you can hold emotionally and vibrate with. I think that part of the human experience is also feeling the fear and the sadness and mourning the loss. And, you know, I think that's what this record is. This record isn't defeatist. I think this record is just acceptance and coming to terms and allowing ourselves to fully mourn, to see what comes next. So in a weird way, there is a little bit of an uplifting element to this record. But you know, Drone No Drone definitely has that uplifting energy, even though lyrically it's all about losing yourself. And it's all about like constantly seeking more outside of yourself to fill that empty void. And anyone that like, this is my opinion, but anyone that says that that's the low point on the record is dead wrong. Like, not only is it a really awesome Nine Inch Nails kind of vibe, but like lyrically it is incredible, going from questioning identity to questioning reality and how we perceive it. And I think now in today's age, more than ever, the majority of us are living in our own reality with like streaming services and social media and everything. Like, we're crafting our own digital realities and choosing to believe what we want to believe that makes us comfortable. That makes us comfortable with the dread of living and dying and all this stuff. And that's exactly what that song is about. It even says in the song, like, maybe this is how it's meant to be, which is crazy. But that's that acceptance element that's permeating throughout every song on the record. So I highly suggest listening to it if you haven't. If you resonated with anything that I said, then feel free to comment below and let me know what you think of this record. If you disagree, let me know why. I'm more than willing to be open to new perspectives. Let's talk about this record, and have a good day.